Good morning, America. President Trump lashes out at James Comey. His first response just moments ago to that dramatic testimony after the FBI director accused the Trump administration of lying.
Those were lies, plain and simple.
The major questions this morning. Did Trump obstruct justice? And are there really tapes of their private conversations?
I've seen the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
Where does the Russia investigation go next? President Trump's former campaign manager here on GMA.
Breaking news, UK in chaos. The shocking election results just in. Prime Minister Theresa May suffering a huge blow at the polls, now struggling to keep her job and the country together as officials demand she resigns. May rushing to meet the Queen, the global fallout this morning.
Caught on camera, the dangers of walking while distracted. The terrifying moment, this woman takes a devastating fall right through a door in the sidewalk. She didn't even see it coming. On her phone, tumbling 8 feet below.
ABC News exclusive. Chelsea Manning speaks out. The transgender soldier convicted for the largest leak of classified information in U.S. history, one-on-one for her first TV interview since her release from military prison.
I've accepted responsibility. Anything I've done, it's me.
Why she did it and her life now.
Thank you. Give it a chance. That's all I wanted.
First on GMA this morning.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA with Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, and Michael Strahan.
Good morning, America. Hope you're well this Friday morning. Boy, what a dramatic transformation there for Chelsea Manning.
Absolutely. And you know, today's the big day because we've also got our biggest concert of the summer yet. Take a live look at Central Park. More than 2,000 people, well, they're already there, and more are on the way for our sold-out show with the Chainsmokers. And George, I see you wearing your dancer shoes today.
George is just laughing and saying nothing. All right, we have a lot of news to get to this morning. We'll have those stunning election results from Great Britain in just a moment.
And here at home, of course, the president just fired back at James Comey for the first time, sent out a tweet saying, despite so many false statements and lies, total and complete vindication. And wow, Comey is a leaker. There are a lot of questions right now after the fired FBI director's bombshell testimony. Number one, did the President Trump pressure Comey to end the investigation into Michael Flynn? Was it obstruction of justice? Are there, in fact, tapes of the conversations Trump had with Comey? And is the special counsel now investigating President Trump? Let's start with our chief White House correspondent, John Carl. Good morning, John.
Good morning, George. Comey's dramatic testimony has set up a new line of attack from the White House, a battle between the president and the former FBI director over who is telling the truth. In his first public appearance since being fired by President Trump, James Comey accused the White House of lying about him and lying about the FBI.
The administration then chose to defame me and, more importantly, the FBI by saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple.
And Comey left no doubt about why he believes he was fired.
And it's my judgment that I was fired because of the Russia investigation. I was fired in some way to change, or the endeavor was to change the way the Russia investigation was being conducted. That is a very big deal.
Comey's testimony left President Trump uncharacteristically speechless.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, any reaction to Comey's testimony? Any reaction at all?
Thank you very much.
Do you think he told the truth? The response instead came from Trump's personal lawyer, Mark Kasowitz, who issued a direct challenge to Comey, accusing Comey of lying under oath.
The president never suggested that Mr. Comey, quote, let Flynn go, close quote. The president likewise never pressured Mr. Comey. The president also never told Mr. Comey, quote, I need loyalty. I expect loyalty, close quote.
Kasowitz keyed in on Comey's acknowledgement that he asked a friend to leak his memos to the New York Times describing his private conversations with the president.
My judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square, and so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
Kasowitz suggested it could be Comey who is in legal jeopardy.
We will leave it to the appropriate authorities to determine whether these leaks should be investigated along with all the others that are being investigated.
But amidst the he said, there's one thing on which the White House and Comey agree. President Trump was not under FBI investigation.
I gather from all this that you're willing to say now that while you were director, the President of the United States was not under investigation. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
All right, so that's a fact that we can rely on at this
Yes, sir.
point. Yeah.
Of course, that doesn't mean he's not under investigation now. The truth about the contested conversations may come down to tapes which Trump tweeted may exist. Tapes Comey and many others in Congress now say they'd like to hear.
I've seen the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
The White House still will not say whether or not those tapes or any recordings of the president's conversations with Comey actually exist, but you can bet that the president and his team will be asked that question over and over again until there is an answer. Amy?
All right, John Carl, thanks so much. And so Comey's testimony raised and left many questions unanswered for those investigating Russia and the Trump campaign. Our senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas joins us now. And Pierre, Comey certainly seemed like a man on a mission. What happens next?
Amy, good morning. With simmering but blistering focus, Comey laid out his misgivings and deep concerns over what he thought was pressure, what he came to believe was an attempt by President Trump to alter the Russian investigation by firing him. He never trusted Trump. He was documenting each encounter with the president right after they talked. He said yesterday that he's given those memos to special counsel Bob Mueller. Bottom line, he wants Mr. Trump investigated. And those close to Trump face increasing scrutiny. The source telling ABC News the Senate Intelligence Committee is planning to interview Jared Kushner later this month. Quite a showdown unfolding, Amy.
Thanks so much, Pierre. George?
Okay, Amy, thanks. I'm here now with Corey Lewandowski, former Trump campaign manager, now an outside advisor to the White House and President Trump. Thanks for coming in this morning. You know, we saw the president's tweet this morning. He said basically that James Comey was lying yesterday. Also said he had vindication. You said James Comey is a liar all the time. Now, the president could prove who's telling the truth by releasing tapes of those conversations. Will he release them?
Look, I don't know if they're tapes, George. You've worked in the White House. You know how the system works. I don't know if there's an
every
internal
president
structure.
is different, but you know President Trump.
But I don't know if there's a tape inside. The president has said maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know if there is or isn't. I don't work in the building. But what I do know is this. Not yesterday when James Comey was testifying, but when he was the director of the FBI, he made repeated misstatements that he had to go back and clarify afterwards. And he made the same thing.
There's a difference between a misstatement and a lie. But let's hold on a second.
When you don't
First
tell
of
the
all,
truth, it's called a lie.
That actually is not true. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. But how come you do not know whether or not the president has tapes? He suggests that he has tapes. You're an advisor to the White House. You've spent hours in the White House. This is a major issue of contention. Does the president have tapes? And if you don't know, why not?
Well, look, I don't work for the White House. I'm just someone who worked for the campaign. I have no formal role in the building. I don't know what the process and procedure is.
How do you know if the president's telling the truth?
Look, I don't know if there are tapes of the conversation, but what we do know for sure, unequivocally, what Jim Comey said yesterday was that the president has never been under investigation. It's the only thing, and if you listen to what Marco Rubio said, it's the only piece of information which was not leaked from the FBI.
So wait a second. You believe James Comey when he says the president was under investigation, but you
was
don't
not under investigation.
You don't believe James Comey when he says the president asked for a loyalty pledge. You don't believe James Comey when he says that in a meeting in the Oval Office with the president asked him to let the Flynn investigation go.
Well, what I don't believe is Jim Comey, who's the director of the FBI for the last 5 years, says, I was so afraid because the president asked me to do something. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't qualified, basically, he said, to call the attorney general, to call the White House counsel, to call the deputy attorney general. This is the director of the FBI, and he was so shell-shocked, stunned, if you will, that the president asked him to, hey, let it go, potentially, which is nothing. He said, I hope this goes away. And what he said yesterday under congressional testimony was nobody has ever been tried or convicted of hoping for something.
He swore under oath that that was the truth. He told people at the time that was the story. He wrote contemporaneous notes at the time. And he was actually asked yesterday, why should we believe you and not President Trump? Here was his answer. He said, you have to look at the whole testimony.
You can't cherry pick it. You can't say, I like these things he said, but on this, he's a dirty, rotten liar. Right. You got to take it all together. And I've tried to be open and fair and transparent and accurate. A really significant fact to me is, so why did he kick everybody out of the Oval Office? Why would you kick the Attorney General, the President, the Chief of Staff out to talk to me if it was about something else? And so that to me as an investigator is a very significant fact.
It's a pretty big question. Why did the president kick everyone out of the office?
Well, let me ask you the question. Jim Comey is the one who first...
Answer this question
I will.
first. Answer
Look,
that. Just
look,
answer that. Hold on a second. Don't ask me another question.
Let me tell you why.
Answer that question.
Because Jim Comey opened the door on January 6th for a private one-on-one conversation with then President-elect Trump. He said, I'd like to brief you directly, privately in Trump Tower. So that was a normal course of business. So why wouldn't the president have a personal, private conversation with Jim Comey after Jim Comey originally asked for those private meetings?
That was a private meeting back in January about the dossier because it's a sensitive personal matter. In that meeting, that was a separate meeting in February 14th. The Attorney General was there, the Vice President was there, Jared Kushner was there. The president asked them all to leave. Why did he ask them to leave?
Oh, maybe he wanted to have a conversation with Jim Comey directly. What I do know is this.
About Michael Flynn.
Here's what I know. Jim Comey testified yesterday under oath that he knew that Jeff Sessions was going to recuse himself. How did he know that? Because he testified to that.
He didn't say he knew that. He actually said, hold on. He said, I believe that. He believed it will be inevitable based on information that he had received as FBI director.
Here's what we know, George. On March 1st, Carol Lee of the Wall Street Journal wrote a story that was published and said there was FBI hand-wringing and there was no formal process for the Attorney General to be recused from an investigation other than, quote, public pressure.
But again, going back to, how do you know what the president is saying is true?
Look, how do we know it's not true, George? Here's what we know. Two people are in the room, the director of the FBI and the president of the United States. What we also know is that if the director of the FBI thought a crime was committed, meaning he was asked to obstruct justice by the President of the United States. Under 18 U.S. Code Section 4, he has an obligation, not only an obligation, a duty to report that to either the White House counsel, the Attorney General, or the Associate Attorney General of the United States. He did none of those things. And if he doesn't do that, and he knowingly conceals information of a crime, that is a felony punishable by 3 years in jail.
James Comey also said is that right now he has turned everything over to the special counsel.
Well, does he turn over to the special counsel of the media? Look, what he admitted yesterday, George, is this guy's the leaker. He is the deep state in Washington that is everything is wrong. He admitted under oath that he gave his contemporaneous notes to a law professor, and if that's what he has done, if he continues to do this, if this is his pattern as the FBI director, he absolutely should have been fired. And if he is the chronic leaker, he should be potentially prosecuted for leaking information.
You think that James Comey should be prosecuted. The point right now is that a special counsel has been appointed. He now has the memos from those meetings with James Comey. So even though the president wasn't under investigation before, he's very likely is under investigation now.
He's absolutely not under investigation. James Comey testified yesterday, and he's only been, removed from the FBI for less than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that at that time, candidate Trump was never under investigation. President-elect Trump was never under investigation. The president was never under investigation. Now, is it possible under some strange scenario that since Jim Comey has left, an investigation has started? It's possible,
Isn't that why the
highly unlikely.
Hired a personal lawyer?
No, it's highly unlikely. He has a personal lawyer because that's what everybody did. Look, don't forget, that's what the Clintons did. That's what they brought in Lanny Davis to take care of all their problems, right? You were there, George, you remember it.
I actually wasn't there at that time. But final question, James Comey answered these questions under oath. Is the president prepared to answer these questions under oath as well?
Look, the president has no obligation to answer anything, but what we do know is he has said time and time again, to reiterate, the president has never been under an FBI investigation. James Comey testified to that yesterday.
Corey Lewandowski, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
That was recorded just moments ago. I'm here now with our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, our chief political analyst, Matthew Dadden. You saw, Dan, let me begin with you. You saw Corey Lewandowski pretty much double down right there, basically accusing James Comey of perjury. The president used the word lies this morning as well. This is now almost certainly in the office of the special counsel. He'll be asking the questions now, and the big question is, who will he find more credible, and do the president's actions add up to obstruction of justice?
First of all, that was a heck of an interview. But in the question of obstruction of justice, I think that if you were to ask James Comey, what do you think? Here's what he would say. He would say that when I was directed to end part of the Flynn investigation, I didn't think it was obstruction of justice at that point. Even until the time I was fired, I didn't think it rose to that level. But I think if you were to ask James Comey in a private moment, what do you think now? I think he would say the fact that I was fired over the Russia investigation in an effort, I think Comey believes, to affect the Russia investigation, that may then cross over into obstruction of justice, according to James Comey. I think that was clear from his testimony, and it is clear from his testimony that he believes that Mueller ought to be looking at that, and I'm confident that Mueller will be looking at that.
And is it clear from these White House, these statements right now, that there are no tapes?
I don't think there's any chance that there are tapes. If there were tapes, I think they could easily just say, I mean, there's no ambiguity about whether tapes exist. They either exist or they don't exist.
And Matt Dowd, it's pretty clear from Corey Lewandowski, from what we're seeing from the president this morning on that tweet, that the White House strategy right now is pretty much going to be scorched earth against James Comey.
George, can I just say that the President of the United States declaring that he was totally vindicated as a winner, I think he's probably got his results from PricewaterhouseCoopers, because the last time a mistaken winner was declared was when La La Land was declared the winner of the Oscars. I think right now that the Senate GOP members are going to just keep defending the castle, but one thing they're unwilling to do is go out and be offensive. They're in a defensive crouch.
Okay, Matt Dowd, Dan Abrams, thanks very much. Much more Sunday on This Week. Of course, that's right here on ABC. Amy?
All right, George, and now to that breaking news from overseas. The results from Britain's high-stakes election now in, and ABC's James Longman is outside Parliament with the very latest. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Amy. Yes, this was something of a disaster for Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, and her Conservative Party. They still have the largest party in Parliament, but they have not got a majority. The Labour Party, on the other hand, have had a good night. Jeremy Corbyn calling on Theresa May to resign, but they also don't have a majority. This was a very bitterly fought election, and the Brexit campaign was front and centre because she promised that she wanted a strong and stable government going forward for those Brexit negotiations. As we have it now, she is on her way, well, she will be on her way to the palace to talk to the Queen about forming a new government, but this is a very, very uncertain time for the United Kingdom. This is an important story. We'll be here with it all day on ABC News. Amy?
Yeah, a very fluid situation. James Longman, thanks so much. Michael?
All right, thank you, Amy. And now to those explosive new claims against Reality Winner, the 25-year-old government contractor accused of leaking top-secret documents. Brian Ross is here this morning. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, Michael. Some very strange twists in the case this morning, and some very big questions about how someone like her had and kept a top-secret clearance. Until her arrest on espionage charges, 25-year-old Reality Winner was best known as a fitness enthusiast who posted videos online of her exploits. Yes! But in court Thursday in Augusta, Georgia, federal prosecutors said Winner harbored some very dark thoughts. They said FBI agents seized a handwritten note at her home that said, "I want to burn down the White House." All this from someone who, as a government contractor, had access to the country's most closely guarded secrets at this facility for the NSA, the National Security Agency.
Contractors typically have top secret security clearance, but they're not subject to continuous monitoring by the agency.
Prosecutors say Winner told her mother in a phone call, "Mom, I screwed up. They know about the documents," but told her family she would hide her real thoughts by playing the role of a pretty white cute girl who would braid her hair and cry. And prosecutors said she claimed to have actually coached her parents in the phone calls to play the sympathy card, as in this interview with our station WSB.
She offered up her life for this nation. And to see her treated so vilely is an insult to every person who's ever worn a uniform.
Winner pleaded not guilty and remains behind bars this morning, but she's been getting some very prominent support from fellow leaker Edward Snowden and comedian Rosie O'Donnell, who gave Winner's GoFundMe page $1,000 and called her a brave young patriot. Michael?
All right, thank you, Brian. And we're going to make a turn now to some scary video and a big scare for a woman in New Jersey. And here she is. She's walking while texting, and all of a sudden she falls right through that open cellar door. Several people saw her fall, and they rushed to call 911. Firefighters were there within minutes, but it took a while to get her out. The woman is in the hospital. She's in stable condition, and she's expected to be okay. And more than 1,000 people a year get hurt like this.
Wow, that is so frightening.
Yeah,
it's a wake-up call.
Scary video and a good lesson learned. And we're going to go now to Ginger with some weather. What do you have for us, Ginger?
A very quick look at that up to 80-mile-per-hour winds in Montana, and the heat's coming. But I'll have to tell you about it later because we got to get those weekend getaways brought to you by CarMax.
Acronyms are fun. LOL, laugh out loud, BTW, by the way, and of course, We Be Sedibo. We'll buy your car even if you don't buy ours.
Hey, what if I wanted to sell my car?
We Be Sedibo.
We Be Sedibo?
We'll buy your car even if you don't buy ours.
We Be Sedibo.
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 We Be Sedibo. We Be Sedibo.
No, we cool. I got you.
Okay. It's the right thing to do.
For this finally Friday, daytime highs getting into the low 80s, definitely where we should be for this time of year with plenty of bright sunshine. Looks to be a great afternoon. Coming up this Saturday, we have the Capitol Pride Parade. That kicks off at 4:30, so if you are going to be